session, we're going to hear from Mark Paul, president of the Neurovascular Division at Stryker. He was also recently named the new executive director of the Center for Medical Innovation here at the University of Utah. At Stryker, Mark has full P&L responsibilities for all operational functions internally, along with the sales and marketing teams in more than 60 countries around the world. He oversees 1,200 employees, including 500 marketing and sales team members across all those countries combined. Please join me in welcoming Mark Paul.
It's fantastic to be with everyone here today, and I'm very excited that the university is embracing the sales world and the sales opportunities that are out there in the world. Everything operates around sales, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. But first I want to tell a story. And for many years we lived in the Boston area, and just like, probably like here in Utah, but in Boston, everybody has an old refrigerator in their garage, right? So what do we do as Americans? You buy a new refrigerator, and what do you do with the old one? Goes in the garage, right? It just sits there and runs. And after a while, this guy, it was in the newspaper, this guy decides to get rid of the old refrigerator. Now in New England, they haul off everything you put on the curb. It's really weird, different than what we do here. So you can pile up lots of stuff and they throw it away. So this guy thinks, well, I'll just take this refrigerator and I'll just put it out with the trash cans. So he wheels this as the story goes in the newspaper article, he wheels this refrigerator out and he puts it near the trash cans. The trash guy comes along, takes all the trash, leaves the refrigerator. So now he goes into week 2. So in week 2, he takes trash and he puts it over the refrigerator and kind of puts trash around the refrigerator. And they take the trash and they clear off all the trash and everything else and they leave the refrigerator. So now he's going into week 3. So I don't know how your family starts thinking about, you got a refrigerator on the front lawn and his wife's not happy. So the next week, he put signs on it that said, trash, it's trash, please haul away. Again, he leaves it there. On the 4th week, he came up with a really good idea. He put a for sale sign on it. And that night, someone stole it. Sometimes that's what sales is like. You have to come up with a new way to position something and bring value to what your product offering is all about. And you have to think about it in the eyes of the customer. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to talk today about having an amazing career in medical device sales. I was no different than you, and I had no ambition to go into medical device sales. Hospitals were stinky. They smell funny. There's people up there, they're like, they die and stuff. And there's like people, there's these rooms with all these sick people in it, and babies are born there, and my grandparents died there. And so I just had this negative, emotional kind of gut reaction to hospitals. But I want you to change all that thinking and those paradigms. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. So this is kind of my universe for the last many, many years, decades. My family's at the top. My wife and I grew up here in Salt Lake City, Utah on holiday. We both attended the University of Utah. And so this is my family here at one of the Rose Bowl pictures. Unfortunately, at the beginning of the game, we looked much happier than at the end of the game. We did not look that happy. And we've moved away for 30 years. And it was all started because of moving into a sales type position. And we were able to live all around the world because of that. We lived in Denver, we lived in Boston, we lived in France, we lived in Boston again, we lived in the Bay Area. And we just recently moved back after 30 years. The bottom part of that slide is the other part of my universe. And those are the arteries that feed oxygen to your brain. We're going to talk about that. But I don't want you to be intimidated by that. And I want you to start thinking about, hey, maybe I could have a career in a medical world. Let me ask you guys at this point, has anyone in your family had a stroke? Okay? Yeah, maybe 20-ish of you. How many of your loved ones have had a hip or a knee surgery? Oh my gosh, look at that. That's why it's a $12 billion industry. All right, so how many have had spine surgery? Yeah, all right. How many have had breast cancer? Prostate cancer? Yeah. Every one of those universes has salespeople that stand in the room while the products are being used, train the physicians, and support the cases. Every single one of those. When you go into your doctor's procedure room and you sit there and they make you sit on that awkward table with the paper on it and you're kind of waiting and you're looking around, everything on those walls, everything he or she pulls out and uses has a company behind it. Every procedure, from delivering babies to neurosurgery we do, all the products they used are made by companies like mine, and they all have salespeople. Vast majority of these salespeople have no background in medical, right? And neither did I. So the picture on the left is when I was a student here. These are my buddies. And so I look up there and I say, gosh, Mark Pinnock on the right is a finance guy. Ron Zarbach, the next guy from the right, runs an employment agency. I'm in the middle. The guy that I'm with the gray jacket on is a medical sales rep for trauma and extremities in Southern California. So every time you blow out an ankle or in your motorcycle accident, these are the guys that put you back together. The guy next to him is an English professor in upstate New York, and the last guy is an advertising guy. But none of us knew that at the time of this picture. We had no idea what we were going to do. And we were probably your age. So how do you go from a college student like yourself to, I joined Procter & Gamble, and then I moved on to medical device sales. And when I was my senior year, I was always going to go to law school. And I was student body president. And I started working with university attorneys, and I had this little mini life crisis because I saw what they did every day, and I decided that's awful. That looks terrible. They sit in these offices, and there's piles of paper, and they're just reading this stuff all day, and I thought, okay, I don't want to be an attorney, but that was my whole educational path was towards that. P&G came knocking, and they said, we want you to go into sales. And I said, okay, so what do you do exactly like in sales? I mean, I know you have to sell something, but how do you do that? And they said, well, we're going to teach you. We're going to teach you how to sell Charmin, always Fem-High. I was an always Fem-High specialist. Diapers, I did diapers. I later did Tide, I did Dawn. I did all sorts of things. And companies like Procter & Gamble are phenomenal at training sales professionals. They're fantastic. But then my life changed. My oldest son was an emergency C-section. I'd never been in the OR. Have any of you been in the OR? It's a whole different universe in there. I'd never been in there. And don't you wonder, like, am I going to get sick or throw up or pass out, right? You kind of wonder. So if you probably haven't been in a C-section environment, but your wife's head is here, and they put blue clothes on you, and they put your hands in your armpit, and they smush you down next to her head. And there's a big blue screen, so you really can't see anything because you're tucked in there. And it's the anesthesiologist. So there's the three of you kind of tucked in over here. But all the action's on the other side of the table. And so I stood up and I watched. And I was kind of curious, like, they don't want you to stand up because they're afraid you'll go down. And they don't want two patients in the room. They want just one patient in the room. And I thought, wow, they made that first cut. And I think my first intrigue was pain management. And I kept saying, can you feel that? Oh, I should also say my wife is a labor and delivery nurse, and this is her team and her doctors. So that comes to the embarrassing part of the story. But I kept saying, do you feel that? I said, wow, do you feel that? And then I kept saying, so now what's this? And he started saying, well, this is the uterine, and here's the bladder. And he was giving me a whole anatomy lesson. If he would have let me, I would have scrubbed in, I would have gone on the other side of that thing, and I would have elbowed my way in there and got that baby out. And, but my wife was immensely embarrassed by my curiosity. And she kept saying, shut up and sit down. I think she probably said that a million times while she's trying to have a baby and I'm asking questions and asking the room. But I was noticing their tools. They had all these different tools. They had all these different devices. And then there was a technique and judgment around those tools and devices. And after seeing that, I thought, I want in. I totally want in on this. And I thought I was too old to go to medical school. I probably wasn't, but I thought I was old. I was like 27, 28. And so I went into the business side of medicine. But what's interesting, in my 1977 aptitude test in high school, it said hospital administration, and I totally discounted it. But what's interesting is the medical device role didn't exist in 1977. It exists now, but it didn't exist then. So I tell you that story because I want you to understand that any one of you can do this. I don't want you to be intimidated that says, hey, you know, I'm in the business school, I never really thought about medicine, but there's the entire business side of medicine. clinical, regulatory, sales, marketing, finance, HR. There's a whole universe there. And I'm going to tell you why that's so cool. And we talked about all the different procedures that your family members have had. And I hate to tell you this, all of us will have our time on the table. From when you're young to when we die, we'll all be on that table. And you want medical devices. Believe me, you want defibrillators, you want hips, you want knees. And in my case, we save people that are dying. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But I want you to, I'm trying to move your paradigm about what does it mean to go into the medical world. You can do this. If a little average kid from Holiday, Utah, that had no medical background, can come in at the lowest level of an entire organization and work my way to become president, you can do this. I promise you, I'm probably the dumbest guy in this room. You guys are brilliant. Your generation is smarter than my generation. And you can do this. So I want you to start thinking differently. So here's what Stryker does. We make hips, we make knees. We now have robots that help do knee and hip surgeries. It is the coolest thing I've ever seen. The next generation, the robot does it. Kind of like eye surgery, like LASIK surgery, where the robot does it. Trauma extremities, when you break ankles and knees and elbows. And then in the middle, we make all the support products, the instrumentation, the burrs, the drills, the saws. We make really cool drills. I always wish I had them at home and you could do different things, fixing your house. You know that yellow stretcher when someone gets hurt, like on the football field, they run out there, that bright yellow stretcher? That's our stretcher, so people see that. It can lift a 750-pound patient with one arm and put him in the ambulance. It's really a robotic lifting system. Then we get over onto my side where we put skulls back together when your head gets crushed. Motorcycle accidents, car accidents, ski accidents. We all do all sorts of different spine procedures. And on that little coil thing right there, neurovascular, think of a slinky, but really, really, really teeny, and we put it into aneurysms. An aneurysm is just a blister on the artery in your head. And that's sort of the universe. So you say, wow, I could have a full range of career opportunities across an immense set of disease states at a company like Stryker. So let me tell you a little bit about stroke, and then we'll get into how we sell in that environment. Strokes occur every 40 seconds. Someone dies about every 3 or 4 minutes. 65% of my patients are females. We don't know why women have more aneurysms, and we don't know why more women throw clots. But I don't know how your family works. I feel like we're saving not just the patient on the table, we're saving family units. If you take out my wife, my mom, my sister, my aunts, my family couldn't operate. We couldn't function. So think about all the females that are on the table. And you look at, it's the #1 cause of disability in the United States. After you have a stroke and that part of your brain dies, dead forever. So when you see someone with a walker, or they can't use their left side or the right side, they can't swallow, they can't blink, they can't remember their words, they can't hear, all sorts of things happen. Whatever part of the brain dies from not getting oxygen, that patient never recovers from that. So we treat over 1 million patients a year in almost 70 countries around the world. And we do this all day long. And we operate all through your leg into your brain. But I want you to think like plumbers. An aneurysm is a leak. It ruptures, it bleeds into the brain. So we just fix the leak. Don't let all the words in the anatomy scare you. Just keep it real simple. If you have a clog, you throw a clot that stops oxygen to your brain, so it's like suffocating the brain. We just go unclog it. So think about that. So how we operate in the brain is through your right femoral artery and your leg. On the inside of your thighs, you have these nice, big, juicy femoral arteries. And we go in there because they're really easy to get to. They're really close to the skin, and you can't hurt them. So we put a wire in and a little needle, and then through that, we come up through your aorta, we come up around your arch, we come up your carotid, we see all your dental work, we see your heart beating, we see you blinking, you're awake, semi-conscious for the procedure. It's called conscious sedation. And we come all the way up in that aneurysm. And if that aneurysm ruptures, you're in big trouble. We try to treat them before they rupture, but sometimes they rupture in people's home, and we bring them in to treat them. And you can see we operate through an inner lumen. That little catheter is as big as a pencil lead. So think of how cool this is. You're saving a life. You're saving someone's mom. You're saving someone's dad. And you get to be in the room right there while the doctor does the procedure. So you're really more of a clinical consultant, but that physician, he or she's turning around asking you different questions about the technologies and how things work. So this is our anatomy. The anatomy at the top is healthy, normal brain anatomy. You can see that's the left internal carotid that comes up and takes oxygen to your brain, and oxygen runs the rest of your body. So it works. So if you have an aneurysm, which is that bottom left, that's right behind your eye. So think about it. How do you get there if it's behind your eye? To try and fix that surgically. They used to dismantle your skull. But now we come in through your leg on the inside with our catheters, and we pack it full of those coils, and the aneurysm's gone. On the right side is when you have a clogged artery, and you can see where that occlusion point is, and we can't see clots. Blood's invisible, so we shoot this dye into the artery. We can't see the clot. We just know one's sitting there, and we go pull that all the way out their leg, and you watch them re-emerge on the table because oxygen is now feeding the brain. Is that the coolest thing ever? Right? Here's a real case. Mother of two in Denver, Colorado. The aneurysm on the top left is a bleeding aneurysm. 50% die before they can get treated of a ruptured aneurysm. And you can see our catheters in the middle picture going into position. And you can see at the end of the case, we filled it full of platinum. We've sealed off that bulge. And we have a little stent there holding the stent in place. She had a full recovery. So when you think about, okay, so how do I do this? How do you sell hips or knees? Or how do you sell endoscopy products? How do you sell these cool scopes? How do you sell devices like ours? Well, there's different ways to get into this. In Utah alone, there's now over 1,000 life science companies, medtech, pharma, bio, and diagnostics. The industry is exploding in Utah. It's becoming one of the mecca sites for medical device companies. So you could start in sales and go all the way to president and never have to move now in Salt Lake Valley. But you can go around the world for sure. So here's how you get in. You want to look for entry-level sales positions. And many of our divisions, and Medtronic and J&J, they have entry-level positions. They know they're going to hire you out of the university system. They know you're not going to have a degree that probably is medical related. So we have complete training programs that train and prepare you for that. Now, they're going to ask you, do you have sales experience? And they know it's not going to be medical sales experience, but they're going to ask you. You're going to need sales experience. So if you want to get a job into sales in my industry or anyone else's industry, you have to start getting some other sales experience before you get there. All right? There's junior sales positions where you might have a big territory and you have these big reps that control large pieces of business, and we provide them junior reps to help them cover their territories. Those are great entry-level positions, and you're working underneath a professional who's probably one of the best in the industry. So it's a great opportunity to start. You can start selling in other industries. I started at Procter & Gamble, and Boston Scientific loved Procter & Gamble men and women because of how well we were trained in sales. That's why they would hire us. So you can start in all sorts of different areas and get your sales experience and then transition to medical sales. Entry-level marketing is another way in. We have a lot of people that will join into marketing roles, and they'll do that for 3 or 4 years. Once you prove yourself in a company, you can start moving around, and then you can work your way over into a sales position. And we have salespeople that work their way into marketing positions, so that happens all the time as well. You might have interest in other areas. Engineering, clinical, global supply chain, project management, HR, finance. That whole world is there for you to enter, and then you can work your way towards sales. I've moved all sorts of people into sales that came into my organization that had no intention of being in sales or marketing. And if I see someone in clinical or finance, no offense to the finance people, and I'll say, you have way too much personality to be in finance. Have you ever thought about marketing or sales? Because, we could use you over here. So we do a lot of that. So on the right, your helpful starting points and experience builders. You can't wait to the very end of graduation and then think about these things. You have to start way, way, way earlier. So start now taking on sales roles in other fields. And you could do door-to-door sales. You could do sales for any one of local companies, but start learning how to sell something. Okay, understanding customer need, the voice of the customer, your products, features, and benefits. And then how do you align those features and benefits to achieve the sale, all right? Also look for ways to support medical procedures. You have 4 hospitals on campus, and you have one across the street, the VA. They have thousands of jobs up there. Patient transfers. I mean, all sorts of jobs where you don't need your medical degree. That's another great way to understand how hospitals work. And patient transportation is a really important one because you go into every procedure room. You know every back door. And in our world where it says do not enter, we're kicking through those doors every day that say do not enter because we have to go in there to sell the product and support our physicians. So why MedTech? It's honorable. I'm a mission guy. I like mission. And but it's honorable. You're saving lives. You're saving suffering. If you like helping other human beings at their most vulnerable moment, this is your world. It attracts and develops talent. It's highly diverse. From all ways you can define diversity because it generally attracts really good, smart people from all walks of life. Salespeople generally like to make money. And my salespeople make sometimes more money than I do because I just keep paying them. You sell, I'll keep paying. And it pays way above all averages of other industries. So you can make a really, really good living. It's durable. The baby boomers are entering the medical system. We've never had this many human beings entering our medical systems in every country on earth. So it's not going to go away. Heart attacks don't go away. Hips and knees don't go away. It's sustainable. It generates new companies. When we built our factory out here 6 years ago, there was like 50 medical device manufacturers in the valley. Now there's 330 in 5 years. And it's repeatable. It's always repeatable. As human beings, we're frail and our bodies needed repair. So I'll stop there. I know I threw a lot of information, probably very alien, but I want you to believe you can do this. So let me take questions.
So I've talked to a handful of professionals in like the boy synthes in California, and they've all made it kind of abundantly clear that it's pretty hard to get into the medical industry.
Mm-hmm.
As somebody, I know you mentioned it a little bit already, but as somebody with no medical experience and a small amount of sales experience, is there a way to set yourself apart other than a resume or just something that you send in online since everything's virtual now?
Michael, that first step into our universe is the hardest. Once you're through the door and you do well, you can go all over the place. So lots of things. So think about medical device company internships.
Okay.
And don't be picky. Big company, small company. You get in there and you work for the summer, that looks huge on your resume. It will look huge that you've had a job maybe in one of the hospitals. It'll be huge if you have sales experience because it's sort of like this catch-22. Well, go get some medical experience and come back, or come get your sales experience and come back. But all of us on the sales and marketing side, 99% of us had no medical background when we were in school. So that's why that slide where I had like other ways in, take those other ways in. Stryker has a division where we design and build operating rooms. And so we hire project managers. We hire young kids that go in and they're on site and they're managing the building of the operating room. 50, 60% of those people later leave that world and enter Stryker and sales in other divisions. But that was their way in. So look for ways in and then don't stop. Someone took a bet on Mark Paul, someone's going to take a bet on Michael.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay.
So a lot of times I think people ask questions in sales interviews about when things are going right, but how do you assuage like a surgeon's personality when things are going really, really wrong?
Oh, they're terrible.
In the moment, in
yeah,
a case.
it's scary.
Because there's short-term and long-term, right?
Yes.
So I kind of want to know what because I've been asked that, and I'm like, you know.
Okay, so when I worked for Procter & Gamble and I sold Charmin, I was never around when it was used. But P&G had to figure that out. It wasn't me, but we had voice of customer. We had to figure it out. Whether it was, I went to our super secret diaper testing facility, and it was like a Far Side cartoon. These babies are crawling around with little suits on and numbers on their back, and the moms and dads stand around the back, and these guys are falling around. They go, oh, leak on the left leg, and they lift this little girl up, and they study where it leaked, and they redesign it. Right, but you don't get to see that for most products that you sell. In our world, we sell the device, I give it to you, and you're going to do the procedure tomorrow, and I'm standing right there. And you're thinking, oh man, please work, especially on the first case. But what happens when you do it really well, the doctor becomes very trusting. And there's hard cases and there's easy cases. And so you build this relationship with the customer where you're part of the team. But you spend a lot of time training and developing on techniques. Remember, you have patient anatomy, then you have the device, but then you have the physician's skills, their hands. And ours are all about steering, wires and pushing catheters, or we're hips and knees. It's all about technique. And so you can bring a lot of value in that room because you're working, say, with Dr. Jones, but you also have 20 other doctors in 10 other hospitals. So you can say, hey, Dr. Jones, I've seen several of these now. What we did in those cases is A, B, and C. You can call Dr. Smith or Dr. Taylor, and they can give you that insight. Well, that's huge value to a doctor who's going in who doesn't want to have a bad case. But sometimes they happen, and you're right there, right? But if you do it right, you become very loyal to each other. It's a great relationship. Questions? Yes?
So, as someone who you started out in Procter & Gamble selling more consumer-grade things to such and such clients, now you're in the medical industry.
Yeah.
Is there a difference in sort of the sales journey that you've seen from those different industries, or would you say like medical sales and sales in other industries are more alike than we may see?
There's basics in sales. Understanding the customer needs. So why Procter & Gamble is so good, when you buy Tide, or you buy Dawn, or you buy Pampers, they know you better than you kind of know yourself. So they really understood voice of customer. So when we transition that over to the medical world, you're talking to these surgeons or these doctors about their procedures. And they spent their whole career specializing on that disease. So you specialize, and you listen to them, and you watch their hands, and we design products that fit those needs and meet their needs. So when we then, and those are with our key opinion leaders, these doctors come in and help us design and test. So when you go into sale, we've based it on that. So those basic core elements of sales are the same, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you understand your customer need, if you understand how the product's being used, and you understand the feature and the benefit that addresses either their needs or the patient needs, it all works. So those skills are all transferable.
Awesome.
Everything sells. Even when you're a division president, who do I have to sell to? Boards. I have to sell to my bosses. I have to get funding. I have to convince my employees things. It's always, I'm selling you right now.
Yeah.
If you haven't figured that out, this is really a sales pitch for talent. And I want sharp young kids coming into Stryker and in the medical device industry.
Mark, we have time for one more question.
Okay, one more question.
Why did you choose neurovascular?
I think it kind of chose me. I realized in my life I'm mission-oriented. And when I was selling, I started in peripheral vascular, so arteries in your legs and your arms, and I would set up here at the U, I'd set up the case and waiting for my doctors. But the room next door was doing these new neuro procedures. And so I would go over and watch the neuro procedures, and I would stay in late hours of the night, even though I didn't have anything to sell to them, because the procedures were so fascinating that operating through the leg, deep into the brain, while the patient's dying, we wear lead clothing. When you go to the dentist, they lay that thing on you and they take the x-ray. Well, I have a skirt, I have a jacket, I have a thyroid guard, I have lead glasses. And I'm watching them save this patient from dying, and that mission was powerful to me. So later when I was promoted and I moved to Boston as a marketing manager, I heard they were starting a neuro division. I physically ran to the president's office, winded, and said, I want to be the first product manager for neuro. So I think it was the mission. It just clicked with me. And I wanted to be a part of something new and something cool like that. So that's why I focus on neuro. But it's interesting when you get into our world, you'll find disease states or things that really appeal to you. Follow that gut. And that curiosity and passion will pay dividends for years. All right, I think my time's up. Thank you, everyone. If I can help, please let me know.